So let's go into introducing our speakers for the day. We have Robin Bailey Callahan. She serves as the program director for the Nurse Family Partnership Program in Cherokee Choices, a chronic disease prevention program for the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. Robin is a registered dietitian with a Master of Health Sciences with almost 20 years of experience in chronic disease prevention. She has certifications in personal training, adult and pediatric weight management, mindful eating, and yoga. Robin believes in the power of prevention and has seen a positive impact it can make on the community. Integrating evidence-based practices with the Cherokee culture is a core of their program. And next we have Hulk Brown. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself before we get started.
Chio Nagada, Tawol Ustida Wadona, Hana Jalak de Suyagita, Tahila Wista Neho. What I said there was, hello everyone, my name is Hulk Brown and I work for Cherokee Choices. I'm the cultural coordinator here with our program, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. And so now I will turn it over to Robin and Hulk to present.
Okay, great. Thank you, Keisha. And checking in, can you see my screen? All right, thumbs up. And thank you, everyone. We know it's the end of the day and a long but wonderful week of presentations. So thanks in advance for just taking the time out to hear about the work of this amazing team. So I'll introduce a little bit, just sharing the work that I'm going to go over with our Cherokee Choices staff. And not pictured is Hawk, Coralie, and our Native Youth Garden coordinator. And so really blessed to work with such wonderful people. Today we're going to hit the core values for Cherokee, for the Eastern Band specifically, that culture, traditions, and then really looking at how to incorporate those values from planning all the way to programming. So starting with understanding the community that we're working with. So I'll go over a little bit of demographics and health disparities, looking at the social ecological framework, and then how do we strategically plan and incorporate all of that culture? So that'll be the boring part that I'm going to do, and then don't go away, because then Hawk's going to share all of the creative and evidence-based programming to show examples of that, of how it's used along with those core values. So. Great, so first, a little bit about Cherokee Choices. So Cherokee Choices is the chronic disease prevention program for the Eastern Band of the Cherokee Indians. We're under the Public Health and Human Services Division of the tribes. We've been here for about 20 years. We started with a grant from the CDC, it's really evolved from just diabetes prevention to chronic disease prevention, with everything from weight management, cardiovascular disease, and looking a lot at ACEs, adverse childhood experiences as well. So our mission is not only to promote physical well-being, but also mental, emotional, spiritual, and cultural well-being among the EBCI. And in order to prevent those chronic diseases. And the big vision is really just looking at generations of wellness to come. So we serve the enrolled members of the tribe, which about 60% live on the boundary here, and looking at not only the town of Cherokee, but there's also enrolled members in Andrews and Murphy and Robbinsville, Silva, Haywood, and Swain as well, and Bryson City. A big part of our services also include tribal members that are staff, the Cherokee Boys Club, the hospital employees, really focusing on that social support and creating a social support system. So people can really sort of expand that culture of wellness with what they're in. So a little bit of a background in looking at some of the health disparities. When we look at some of the data, just looking at diabetes, our rates are right around 20% for type 2 diabetes. We look at the national average, that's right around 8%, so more than double. These cardiovascular disease numbers don't include all of the stats, but just to note that cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death among Native Americans, so that's a big focus there with our prevention efforts. And then just healthy weight in general, looking at about 66% of the population having a BMI over 25 with that classification of overweight, and then 44% of over 30. You know, another thing, like just beyond that physical numbers, we look at ACEs, which is the adverse childhood experiences, and I'll come back to this one. But if you're not real familiar with ACEs, it's really looking at potential traumatic events that occur in childhood. This could be anything from physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence, substance abuse, mental illness, suicide or death, or crime. So looking at that, when we look at the EBCI and the average ACEs scores, now this is just data from Syringe Services, that ACEs score is at 5.3. And they know the more they have a direct correlation with the higher the ACEs score that you have, the more likely you are to have at least 5 of the top 10 chronic diseases. So here we see lung disease, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes already just automatically increasing that risk. So we really focus a lot on moving beyond that hurt, moving beyond that pain, and building on the resilience of the Cherokee, of our people, of what we work with all around us, the resilience within each person. So looking at things like empowerment and healing and health and wellness, and really connecting people with those services and that positive message of hope. One of the frameworks we use is the Resources for Resilience. So I wanted to give you a background. We're really going to focus more on the cultural piece, but just to show a little bit about the programming on a whole that we work with. So looking at that and looking at how do we really take all those needs with a community, and where do we start? You know, where do we start with making a big difference, with turning the curve? And we look at all levels. From an individual level, with really empowering that person, making sure they know that it's their choice, connecting them with their values, all the way to creating that social support network, with working with their families, with their friends, getting multi-generations involved in the programming. And then looking at organizational, so working with the schools. We work a lot with the Cherokee Language School, with the ECE centers, worksite wellness. So they're not making these healthy changes on their own. They have that support. And then community and public policy, for example, like the admin leave for physical activity. So the chief actually gives paid time off to be physically active or attend some of the healthy classes. You know, and when looking at this is not, it's on all of these levels, right? Through the social ecological model, but it's also through all the stages of life. So all the way from from when they're in the womb, some of the most important time to start making these healthy life decisions with the Nurse Family Partnership Program, to classes in the early childhood education centers, the daycares, with planting those healthy seeds throughout the schools with the summer camp, into adulthood, and then really learning from our elders, like with the Elder Interview Project, which we'll talk much more about. And you can see the beautiful seasons here in the Smoky Mountains. So with programming as well, you know, tuning into that energy of the community when people need to have that downtime, when we need to look at the basketball schedule and the football schedule before we put classes on the schedule, tuning into those holidays and making it fun and festive. So how do we do all this, right? So how do we take, you know, all this big, right, enormous job and actually put it into action? So it starts with a foundation, a strong and good foundation of integrity among all of the staff. So doing the right things for the right reasons, and really not having your own agenda on the schedule, but really looking at the needs of the community and what's going to turn the curve. So we started with this by actually, you know, it happens all day long, right, in the decisions that we make, but it also happens on paper in our strategic plan. And this was really a big part, I feel like, of getting culture more integrated into the work that we do. So culture has always been a part of Cherokee Choices, but for years and years, it wasn't really integrated into our programming, and not because it wasn't important, but because it wasn't written in. So I think it's just, if you're as a tribal nation looking at how do we incorporate more culture into what we do, this just kind of gives a little bit of a framework of a place you may start. So first of all, just looking at that big vision overall and making sure culture is a piece of that. And that didn't start with just Cherokee Choices, but that was tribal wide. That was the chief declaring an emergency on saving the language because the language was dying. And it was written into the chief's plan and written into the public health and human services plan, and now written into Cherokee Choices plans and goals and objectives. But you can't just have it on paper as goals and objectives. The entire staff, right, has to be invested and on the same page. So then from that, really listening to the community, you know, how do we make this happen? Well, asking the community and having the community members involved, for example, in the elder interview group, and having those surveys out. So, and then once you have that plan, and with making that plan, you have to put resources behind it. And so thanks to the Good Health Within Indian Country 1903 funding, we were able to hire Hawk as a cultural consultant and have him, that's his job, right? To look at everything we do and how can we integrate more culture, more Cherokee culture, or is this culturally sensitive? And then having the staff, because we have a mixed staff, we have many enrolled members and we have many that aren't, so that are all on the same page with understanding the Cherokee culture and the core values. And then just having those funds, like, okay, we want to do a ribbon skirt, like you've got to have money, to back that up. The other piece of that is just sort of building it into your daily operations. So we have, some Cherokee language and staff meetings, and track it in our performance measures. And then looking at that big picture and throughout the process of results-based accountability, which is how much did we do? How well did we do it? And is anyone better off? And then really reflecting on that, learning from that, and then doing it all over again, right? What did we learn this year? What did we learn this last 6 months? What did we learn from this program? Did it connect with the community? Is it meeting the needs, especially with this changing times of COVID, and then starting all over again? So this just gives you an example. I do not expect you to be able to read my very messy handwriting, but this just showed a little bit about what the process looked like. Like this is this is our vision, right? We want healing. We want laughter. We want Cherokee language throughout. We have all these events. What partnerships do we need to incorporate? And then we looked at something called the top, which is the art of participation, and brainstorming where everyone's voices were heard on all the different possibilities of interventions, from everything from stress management and substance abuse to nutrition and fitness and culture, and which ones were the best. So taking all of this, and then I'll hand the reins over to Dewoti, is like sort of the key things that stand out when we look at strategically incorporating culture. Is one, that culture is really the center of the programming goals. The community members are engaged in the planning. There's a constant respect for incorporation of culture and language and traditions. And then adapting those materials and programming to really showcase that. So the Cherokee core values are a big piece of that, and Hawk's going to share more about that with some examples. So as we transition over, I'll take just a quick moment for any questions on this piece, and I'll hand it over to Hawk.
Any questions?
Everyone, yeah, go ahead. Feel free to use the chat if you have any questions, or if you want to raise your hand for Robin. Go ahead, Doc.
Oh, I was asking if anybody had any questions before I shared my screen.
I am seeing none so far in the chat.
Well, all right. Is everybody able to see the presentation? Can you?
No, Robin, did you end your?
Can you do that on your end? I'm having a hard time again with finding my controls. They've disappeared.
Let me see.
Isha, you can probably remove Robin.
There you go.
Yeah.
Great.
Is everybody able to see it now?
It came up now.
Okay.
Yes, it's good.
Oh, sure. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Talking about my part of the presentation and the way that we've incorporated the 7 Cherokee core values. The first one that we have up here, group harmony. And that is group harmony. And my example for this that we talk about, and I have up here some pictures of all of our staff from different things that we're doing. none of this would be possible if we didn't have, just a great team that supports each other and is always there for each other, no matter what Yo or Kiana or Robin is doing, we all pitch in to try to help each other and do what we can. And that's something that we try to teach back when we're with our summer programs or when we're working with the community, things like that. One of the things that I have here on the screen is this comes from our laws of Gadugi, or which is community. And these are things that we try to, learn amongst ourselves and teach out into the community as well. And what this says here is, in the mind and heart, always have the thought of working together. Nigaya ishon Gadugi nijane esti. And to me, that's one of the most important things that we can always remember, and that's something that we try to do here at Cherokee Choices. Jalagi Dishuyagida. All right, and the next one that we have here on our 7 core values is spirituality, and the way that we have that in our language, Adantogi Udale Nahi. And when we talk about that with our culture, spirituality, and the way that we try to, connect that back to our people, one of the big things that they do here at Cherokee Choices is the yoga classes and teaching mindfulness and well-being. And in a way that connects to our culture as well, listening to your body, listening to your spirit as well. In all of our teachings, in everything that, if you was to take everything that our people have and boil it down, at the very center of that, the core of who we are and what we strive for is to find that peace, balance. And what that is right here beside those words is tohi, and that is the way that we say peace and balance. What you see here is some of the examples. One of our other team members, Yolanda Sanoop, had this done, and we done some translation. She translated some of the yoga poses that they use in yoga, and we adapted them to fit these kids so that they see it in a cultural way. And then we took the names that were on these yoga poses, and because these things are older, they've got translations from the old Sanskrit language that it comes from. We were able to translate these out as well, and this is just some examples. We have the warrior pose, Joine Ayoski, and the tree pose. This is one that the kids they love this pose, and it's Adskani. And then the reverse warrior pose, Ashini Ayoski. And then the next slide that we have, this is some examples from our native youth garden, or not our native youth garden, but our yoga camp and our cultural camp. The kids went through 2 weeks of this camp, learning not only yoga, but also culture and how we can tie that back in, language, things of this nature. If you'll see in the top picture here, the kids are doing the tree pose, Adskani. And then on this other one here, you've got them writing in the language and using some of the symbols and designs from these other cultures. All right, the next one that we have is strong individual character. Usnigid adantedi diukota. And that is, strong individual character. And one of our laws of Gadugi that, we try to share with this is to live and be skilled in all areas of life. De jadashinesti ijehesti. And we cover many different things here at Cherokee Choices. We've got everybody wears many different hats in this program. We're always helping each other, but a huge part of that with our summer programs that Yo is in charge of, that we all help with, part of that is showing these kids who you are, who you come from, and that you can be anything or anybody that you want to be. And these ladies in this program, I don't think that anybody does a finer job on this boundary of, supporting these children, making sure they're well taken care of. The things that they go through just just trying to, get the interview process and the applications done. And it's a lot of hard work, and it's something that I know they carry home with them, that they worry about these babies even, even when they go home. And these babies come to this program. Well, I say babies, they're our babies, but we've got kids from 8 all the way up to 14, 15 years old. Just to be able to watch them grow and open up, and once they learn more about their culture, who they come from, the strength of the people that they come from, that is something that we definitely try to instill in these children. And not just that, but especially our girls, because we are a matrilineal tribe, and we believe, that our women were the backbone of our people, and that they were the ones that held our medicine, and they were sacred. And that's something else that we try to teach these young girls as well. All right, talking about strong individual character, I use this example because we have some kids that were not very adapted to the water, or that had never been whitewater rafting. This is one of the activities that we done in our camps over the summer, and these children just had a blast. I tell you, this is one of the things that this and horseback riding is one of those activities that, kind of help break them out of their shell a little bit, let them know that they can do things that they didn't think they could do. All right, sense of place. And we have Goli Jahi, Digadale Nahi, like where we come from, where we begin. And the picture that you see here, one of the reasons that I use this image for sense of place, the background that you see here is of a very, probably the most sacred place to our people, and that is Katua, the Katua Mound. And one other reason that I use this image here, it's what it's showing is one of our ancestors at the Katua Mound. And the Katua Mound is like the birthplace of our people. If you were to look at it from a religious point of view, it's like our Garden of Eden, where we began, where everything come from. And I'm lucky enough that this picture is actually a picture of my grandmother, who's a full-blood speaker, and the reason that I'm able to speak Cherokee. So here we have another picture of Katua Mound. This is probably the most sacred place that we have to our people. And this is one of the areas that we take our children to, that we do lots of events, community events, things of that nature, so that we tie everything back to our beginning, to where we come from. Because I'm sure as y'all have heard through this presentation, or as we're being introduced, we're so often introduced as these are the people from the Cherokee Indian Reservation. And a lot of people know us as Cherokee, but what many people don't know, even our own people, and something that we have to teach back, and that we teach these children, that we teach into the community, that's a name that was given to us. We are not Cherokees. What we call ourselves is Aniyowayahi, Anikituwagi, which is the principal people of the mother town. And the mother town is this place here that we see in the picture. And that's a huge part of what we try to teach and give back, is letting know who we are and where we come from. And that the fact that we can actually go to these places that are in our stories, that we can put our hands and feet and touch the very earth from where our people began. And this is a site that even science has been able to prove that we've been there over 15,000 years, if not longer. All right, the next slide that we have here, this is another picture of a mound located in Franklin, out near Robbins Way. And this is a very important place that we take the summer programs and different community members, teaching about our history, where we come from, who we are. This is one of the 7 sacred towns that belong to our people, and this mound has a lot of meaning behind it. This is us when we took our children there to give the meanings, to give the history. Our people have a very special connection with this mound. This is the Naquasi Mound, and in our language, that the word Naquasi, no Quishi, means word star. So this was also known as the Star Mound. We have stories of star people who come down from the sky here, and also spirit protectors who have defended our people at different times throughout our history, and it's even written in United States history. To be able to take the children to this place, for them to be able to put their hands on it, and to see, the vast history, that not just read it, but to be able to put their hands on it, I think makes a huge difference. When it comes to classroom learning, I know from statistics and things, just being in a classroom, being a teacher myself, only a certain amount of children actually take in and learn from what we put in books, what we put on a board, what we teach, with them sitting down at a board. When you do outdoor learning, when you do hands-on, when you do like the teaching method I use in total physical response, TPR, these are things that help make it real and stick it to your memory, so that you're not just memorizing something, but you're actually learning something. And these children and these community members are not just learning these things, but they're putting their feet in their hands where their ancestors were before colonial change, before there was, when we were who we were as a people. All right, honoring the past. Galakwoti ulo shanahi. And the picture that we have here for honoring the past, a huge part of our program, of our tribe, is our elders. They hold the key to everything, our language, our history, our medicines, all of the things that, are starting to become put aside because, our children are living in this colonized world. The elder that we have here is a family member of mine, and her name is, we call her Aunt Maggie Wachacha. She was a beloved woman here on the Eastern Band. She was also the Cherokee clerk for our council back in the day, and she would walk from Robbinsville some 50 miles out down here to Cherokee to write for our council back in the day, to make sure everything was recorded in our language. We were able to take our children out to visit some of her family members and work in their garden on their home site with the Native Youth Garden. We were able to take them out and they listened to stories from one of our other elders, JC Wachacha, and they were able to help him in the garden. We went crawfish hunting, and all of these things were done in our language. They were able to sit and actually hear our fluent speakers, elders whose language was, their first language was Cherokee, to be able to sit and hear those things and learn these old stories, and hands-on learning in the garden with the language as well. And that's how we preserve that. That's how we keep passing that on through the generations, from elders to the children, and making sure that the language does not get lost, making sure that those old ways do not get lost. And that's how we continue to honor the past. So the next one that we have here for the 7 Cherokee core values is educating the children. And here we have some of them doing different activities from previous camps. On this day, the first picture that you see here, this is the sequoia bear. We have all the painted bears around Cherokee, and this one is in representation of Sequoia, who was the inventor and creator of our writing system. And that's something that, we brush up and try to teach with these children, about the history of our writing system, of our language. This is in front of a museum. We had one of our trips there that day, doing these cultural activities with them, showing them these things, taking them to the village, taking them to the museum, teaching them about who they are, taking them to these cultural sites. They may never get this chance again. They being able to do these things, not only do they get to see it and touch it and feel it, learn about it, but it wakes up who they are as a Cherokee individual. Teaching, my grandma always told me when I was learning the language, you know, if you want to learn the language, teach it, because the best way of learning is to teach. And so when we do these things, you know, another part of this was getting them to talk about things after we had come back and teach each other, or if there was individuals that weren't there that day, you know, hey, what did you learn yesterday? Can we tell so and so, you know, what medicines do we pick, you know, for this or for that? Another trip that they done here was we took them down to Joyce Kilmer Forest. This is one of the only places left in our mountains where there's the old growth forest. And some of these trees down here, it takes 5, 6 people to wrap around. And they got to visit in this area, and we done some yoga in the woods down there, and then talk about language and going over medicinal plants and the what our people use those for in the old days. Here's just some more of those, doing cultural masks, learning to do some of the basket patterns, weaving, horseback riding. These children just had a blast doing all this, but to be able to connect back to their culture, to hear the language, been eating together, having prayer done, all these things. The next one that we have here, this is our Native Youth Garden when they were graduating at the end of their 2-week or 3-week program that we had. These children got to participate in really getting their hands dirty for real, doing gardening, old gardening methods that were traditional to our people, on how we would raise gardens compared to how that they do it now, and why it worked for our people. One of the things that, you know, we talk about and teach with that is Three Sisters gardening, and that's the corn, beans, and squash. And there was actual scientific method behind it that our people knew hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The way that we would grow these things together, it would provide nutrients for the soil, it would keep bugs off of certain other plants, and then like growing the corn and the beans together, you know, providing the structure for the beans to grow up, and it provided support for the corn. And then all different cultural things that we taught back in this program, as well as far as cultural taboos, just things that our people did and didn't allow when it come to preparing and serving food, putting away food. They were able to preserve some food culturally. We done pottery, things of this nature. But that's just the Native Youth Garden. All right, and that was all of us women. All right, so on this next one that we have here, the last core value, when we're talking about the 7 core values of our people, and that's really just being happy, having laughter, and that sense of humor. Uli helisti nole uwochata adanatela. And the saying that we have here is, not only is it just translated, but this is an example of things that, you know, that we have to do, you know, trying to get language out there, trying to get people to see stuff. We've all heard the live well, love much, laugh often. But, you know, that's not something that we get to see in Cherokee often, you know, like seeing cartoons or anything like that in our language. So this is probably, I think, one of the most, probably the most important core value that we have, because when we teach about being happy, being healthy, you know, you have to smile. If you're walking around with a frown all the time and you're down, how are we going to be able to help each other, help the community, help these children? You know, we've got to lift each other up. The laws of Kadugi are laws of community that we talk about when we dance together, when we dance with these children, when we do the friendship dance. In that dance, we hold hands together, and it's man, woman, man, woman. And the reason that we say that is so that if I fall down, if I stumble, if something happens to me in life, there are 2 people, one on each side, to pick me back up. And that's the law of Gadugi. And we always tell each other, Nahi, you know, smile, be happy. And what this says here is, Osta he hasty, agadida jadage you hasty, iu dali jaye jishkesti. And that's live well, love much, and laugh often. All right, and then this is just an example of other things that I do as far as, you know, teaching with Cherokee language. One of the flyers that you see here was for a class, a virtual class that we done through Cherokee Choices, doing spotlight language lessons and teaching Cherokee language out to the community members. We had about, I'm not quite sure on my numbers right off. We had over 80 people signed up for the classes, and we were just going to do 15 spaces. And I ended up creating 2 other classes so that we could take in more. And then we created another separate class just for the ECE centers, for the door read staff, and for teachers that wanted to learn to speak Cherokee and incorporate it in the classroom. And one of the really cool parts of that was after we done this language, the virtual language class, we had another training over at Dora Reed, and I was able to walk up and down the hallways and all the slides and presentation stuff, and you could see the Cherokee language from my classes being used up and down the hallways. You could see it posted in classrooms. It was actually being utilized in our ECE centers over here, and that it just made me feel really good. But to see it not just in 1 or 2 classrooms, but all up and down through both sides of the school, that was amazing to me. And it let me know that the teachers were using it, that they were seeing it every day. And if the teachers are using it and seeing it every day, then that means the children definitely are. And they notice things that we don't. All right. So another example of some of the work I do here is this was a project that came through with Blue Ridge and the Track to Trail, which is, tools that we can utilize with our program as well, and our children, teaching about animals, teaching about language, teaching about culture, old stories that we have that connect to places here and things that we do here on the boundary, such as stickball and our creation story. And then if you see here, it's got different herbs and things like that we translate it so that they can learn to speak it in their language along with the animals and things like that. All right, and then another big project that we work on here at Cherokee Choices is the Cherokee Elders Interview Project. And what that is we've been going out among the community and gathering information on traditional Cherokee birthing practices and child rearing, anything to do with pregnancy, breastfeeding, anything after birth, men's roles, anything that our people still had knowledge or could remember of old ways that our people done this, midwifery, doula, anything to do with raising children. And so we've went out into the community. We've been gathering these elder interviews. COVID has put some some barriers up with this and put things on halt, but we've been able to start, going out and doing elder interviews again. We've been going out through the communities here on the Eastern Band and also down into the Snowbird areas and Murphy. And we were also lucky enough to be able to include our family from Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma and the United Katua Band, who are the other 2 bands of our people that were separated from us during the Trail of Tears back in the mid-1800s. It's been a huge part of the goals that our tribe has been working to, that we be able to work as a united tribe again, and that we work together for our language consortiums and anything that we do it as one instead of 3 separate bands now. And so that was a huge part of me feeling that it was important that we include all of that in together. The way that we do these interviews, all of us have been vaccinated. We wear a mask, we do social distancing. Some of us have had to do it over the phone, doing these interviews, or through Microsoft Outlook, Zoom, things of that nature. But we have been lucky enough to be able to sit down with some of the elders to record, to write these interviews down, and to gather their stories, who they are, where they come from, how things were different between now and then, what they can remember about mom and dad saying, things that they were taught or weren't shared with. Learning from our elders about this has been one of the biggest honors I have had since coming to this job. It's literally put me back in a place of my childhood, because I have even just over the weekend, I was literally sitting at the feet of my elders, listening to Cherokee language, listening to them go back and forth and talk about things that they didn't even remember until that we had sat down and started bringing things up, things that they hadn't even thought about since they were children. And to learn the differences, to learn their trials and things that they went through has just been such an honor. Going into this, once we have finished with all of the elder interviews and all of the information has been gathered, we've put together a cultural committee that will go through all of the information and decide culturally what can and cannot go in. And then once that goes through, it will be put into booklet form, and we've been working with the Nurse Family Partnership. And if Robin needs to speak on this a little more, she's more than welcome to. But the target group that this will go out to will be expecting mothers in the Nurse Family Partnership, and then it'll be sent out, to be disseminated around amongst the rest of the community. But hopefully this will be something that we can add on to every year, that we can build into this, that it'll be something that can grow. And the huge part of this is just connecting our people back to their cultural roots, showing them support from a cultural standpoint, and then letting them know this is something that's been going on for thousands of years. You've got the strength to do this, and you've got your people behind you. And just having that cultural platform to stand on is a huge thing for our people. Robin, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, you did a great job, Hawk. But now, how many interviews now have been done today?
I don't have a count. I know we've done about 10 interviews while we were in Oklahoma. I might be more, and I've got more scheduled, but we got some awesome recordings while we were out there, all in Cherokee language. I'm gonna have, it's gonna be work, but it's
Yeah,
awesome.
I think we're at least to 25 or 30.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Yeah, and I think the only other piece, just looking at that big picture, is, this is just going to be a wealth of knowledge, and part of that dissemination effort is looking at how do we connect this with healthcare professionals as well, within the public health and human services division. So is that part of the onboarding process? Are there focus groups? Are there trainings? So that'll be a piece in itself. And then of course, it'll just keep growing, and we'll keep collecting the stories and learning, because we definitely don't want to hoard the information. We want to share it for that's culturally relevant to do so. So, Shki.
And that's it. If anybody's got any questions, or if there's anything else. Shki.
Thank you very much, Robin and Hawk, for an excellent session and presentation. Like they said, if you have any questions or even just comments that you would like to share, feel free to use the chat, or you can also unmute yourself as well if that's easier.
Well, and I just want to say thank you to Hawk for agreeing to present, especially with just a busy trip. And I believe that we have two staff on, Kiana and Yo. So this is pretty informal, so feel free to chime in. And thanks for your hard work and dedication, and always, we've never, it might have been a little hard during COVID, but man, it has not slowed us down. We may have to do it in a different way, but spirits are still up, and motivation, and doing what we can do during these hard times, and that's resilience right there. So
absolutely. There's a question in the chat from Yvette. She said, nice presentation. Do you have a hard time engaging youth? If so, any recommendations?
Is that for me or Robin?
Both. I guess you both could take that.
go ahead, Hawk, you take it.
So The youth is I would much rather have 50 children in a classroom to teach than 5 adults. Children, it is so much easier to engage them and get them to learn and to want to do things, especially if you don't put a pen and pencil or paper and pencil in front of them. If you get them up, get them active, get them doing things. The trick is don't tell them they're going to learn something. Do an activity where they don't know they're learning, and then they've got it. Adults know they're learning and they want to fight you. They say, I can only learn this way. We can learn all kinds of ways.
Okay. And then we just have just some comments from attendees. Kihana said, great job. And then we have Christina that says, beautiful work. Yes. Alrighty, so if there's no additional questions for Robin and Hawk, again, I just want to thank Robin and Hawk for an excellent presentation. And of course, we work with Robin and Hawk with the GWIC project. So it's always nice to hear all the innovative things that they're doing with their program, and just even adding the cultural language to the project as well has been successful. Just even hearing the amount of people that you've engaged in with, and the youth is intrigued with the sessions and things that you hold. So